The Wellington Deaf Society was established in 1938. Here, the Wellington Deaf community is a strong one, heavily involved in community, in events, in activities and in celebrations. Wow, there's a really strong sense of heart. Back in 2015, the Deaf Club, based in Marion Street, was sold. Now we're in 2018 and there remains no Deaf Club for us to go to, no building, no second home for us. Despite that, the community remains strong, with a really strong sense of community in events and celebrations. I'm now going to be speaking with some of those people who are involved in Wellington Deaf Society and get from them their memories and their stories, and I look forward to speaking with them. Come and join me.
My name is Maureen. I'm a community worker for the Wellington Deaf Society, which was set up in 1938 and is still going. In 1990, a group of young people made this video. They interviewed elderly people who talked about their past experience. The group was Angela, Grant and Tony. The deaf people first met at this boxing place. They got a club together with a secretary and treasurer, but the boxing man wanted to run it himself, so it split up and we got another hall to rent. We gathered more people together. A person who had come out from England ran it.
I'm a foundation member of the Deaf Club. In 1940 I became a member of the committee. Then I was secretary for 7 years. I worked very hard for the Wellington Deaf Club. Then it became the Wellington Deaf Society. The old club rooms were in Manor Street. We
Maryland.
Come back up.
Yeah, you should complain.
Won't you come on?
You complain to Wellington strangers down, that's not right. They go and tell them you're not allowed to play up and come down. Anyway, complain. You got the receipt, must get the receipt, it's showing them that you're right.
Hi. How are you? Cup of tea? Wow, lovely photos. Yeah, these are from a deaf woman named Pat Dugdale. So she was a long-time member of Wellington Deaf Society, and she collected all of these photos and various people would give them to her. Yeah, so she started researching, and then unfortunately she passed away in 2005, but her collection remained. So now we've got them all out again and we're having a look through them. So this is giving you some history, starting from what Pat has done. Yeah, that's right. Back from 1938 is when she started. And so, yeah, all the way through until now. And my absolute favourite, because I remember my mother and father were there, was this one. Yes, celebrating the 10th anniversary. The reason why this is one of my favourites is because my mother and father are actually both in the photo, and they had just got married 1 month before it was taken, and my mum is wearing her wedding away outfit. So that's why I really love to see that. Let me have a look. A lot of people were there. So you can see how they were celebrating their 10th anniversary. The clothes, really different. And at the same time as this celebration, there was a famous deaf blind woman named Helen Keller who was visiting. And so that coincided with the 10th anniversary. That's a really lovely memory. And all of those people turned out because Helen Keller was there too. So most of them have passed away, but there's one lady who's still alive. Her name is Florrie Burr. Yes. And she is the longest surviving member. Actually, she was the original female president of the Deaf Club. Picnics were another one. Picnics, plenty of picnics. There was a deaf farm up in the Rikarangi area. And there was a river running through, and a whole lot of us would get together for picnics there. And there was another one that I can remember, which was over in the Upper Hutt area, Maidstone Park. So yeah, those are two big ones that I can remember. And we always played tug of war. Yes, that's remained, hasn't it? Yeah, it's a popular one. So I was looking at the photos, and there are a lot of sports represented within them. Lawn bowls was one of them. Well, lawn bowls is probably a more recent development. Previously it was indoor bowls. Right. Basketball. Basketball and table tennis too. When the Wellington Deaf Society was established, the way members joined was through sports. So people would get involved in sports, represent their areas, and then join and become members of the Wellington Deaf Society. People involved in the Wellington Deaf Society would play sports but still remain members of the Deaf Club, meaning they could still be involved in the activities and events run through the club, and that's how sports influenced the membership. Wellington Deaf Society was established in 1938, and shortly after that, Wellington hosted the Labour Weekend Deaf Sports Games, where 216 people from all over New Zealand came together and competed in various sports. So you can see how sports has a really strong link to the Deaf Club. And Wellington Deaf Society, through sports and in turn membership, enabled members to get involved in events and activities. Wow, still here. My God. Excellent. Wow. A memory for me of being in Wellington Deaf Club, or my first memory, was the feeling of actually going inside the club and realising that it had all been done by deaf people, the building and the painting, and I was like, all by deaf people? And they said, yeah, all done by deaf people. And I was like, wow, that is beautiful. It's a wonderful memory. So the building, what did we use it for? Deaf Club to get together every Friday night and then sometimes on Saturdays as well for social gatherings. It was fantastic. And we would fundraise to help various sports activities that were happening. And we realised that the walls were quite plain, and we noticed that the membership was dwindling somewhat. So we came up with the idea to get the youth involved. And we thought it might be a bit of a cowboy effort, but maybe they could kind of judge the place up a little bit. And we asked them, and they got involved in the building and some of the artwork and drawing some funny pictures and things like that. So they got right behind it. Yeah, there were some really good builders involved. There was Shane Fenwick. There was also Grant Billing. They were really good at the carpentry side of things. They knew about the wood and what to do there. They would go and source the wood, some of the good Remu wood, and then bring that back. And that was used for the bar and for various things. So we were also involved in that, working on the nail gun, and we learnt from them, didn't we? Yeah. Daniel, he painted everything. There was also Bill Tyndall. He painted. Yes, he did. And Wayne as well painted. Chappell was involved, I remember. Carl Chappell, Leith, and Rodney Roberts was involved. Yeah, all of them too. The bar was built. It took a really long time to do that, actually, all the measurements and everything, and we finally got there, us two. There were three of us, actually, and we worked all day from morning till night, didn't we? All day, building away. The roof was really hard part of it. There were a number of different layers to it, and working with the tiles was really difficult to get all of that right, but we got there, and we then had to varnish the whole thing as well, which took some time. But yeah, we got there in the end and it looked pretty good. The windows up here. Yeah, I remember that. And when it was really hot, we were able to open them. In the summertime anyway. And now those windows are gone. They've been taken away and it's been replaced with this. No way. No. It's all gone. Previously, what was it? Remember there were the logs of wood and they were cut in half and then we placed them on the walls just up until waist height. And that was over in the cowboy themed area. And we had barrels there that you could lean on and have a drink. It was quite a cowboy type thing. And now all of that's gone and it's just all been taken off. The floor as well. It's different. Wow. Wow, it's all gone. The bar and everything, the wood, all gone. You might be able to see from over in this angle. All of it is gone. Yeah, it has. My God, just everything. Just totally been wiped out. It's like, wow, 2 years ago I was here and wow, where's the deaf community gone now? You know? Really? Okay. Yeah, there's nothing here, but we still do keep in touch. But yeah, this whole area has been wiped out and it's like we need to start from scratch again next time. I'm just in shock. Everything has changed. Even the overhang is gone. Remember that wooden one? It's all been taken off as well and replaced with what's here now. Before we had this whole area, there was something else in here too, and it just all looks so different. I feel I've got a bit of a broken heart. There's nothing left, you know, it's like those old memories are gone. We organised jackets, zip-up ones with yellow and black on the back with a lion. So there's the lion on the back and on the logo here in the front as well. And tell me more. Tell me about this jersey. This is 30 years old, this jersey. And there was a man named Bill Reese who organised these. So you've got the logo of the lion here on the left, and then what about these ones here? Yeah, this is for being a life member, the lower one, and above that is the new logo here. I remember the first time I went in and I met 3 people who all asked me to go out. This was on a Friday night, and I was a bit stunned. I knew nothing of Wellington City. I was used to Sumner School for the Deaf, being a boarder there, but now here I was in Wellington, and they asked me to go to a movie, and they said, we're going to meet at Beachcomber Cafe, round Oriental Bay. So I was a bit nervous, and there was David Smith, he was there. David Smith invited me to go out, and he had a Volkswagen car. So anyway, he arrived and I went to put my bag in the boot of the car. However, the engine was in the boot, not in the front. Yeah, a Volkswagen. I was like, okay, it's not in the front, it's in the back. Put my bag in there then. And so anyway, did that, and I was a bit nervous. And anyway, we got to our destination and there were 3 other friends that met us there, and we chatted for hours and hours and hours. And I got home and my father growled at me and he said, look at the time. And I tried to explain to him, you know, what I'd been doing. But then he was encouraging of it, and I got more heavily involved in different events and met various ones, the 3 sisters, yeah, David Smith a lot as well. And then there were the picnics. And I was like, going to go on a picnic? Okay then. So we went up picnics up Paraparam Way, over in Upper Hutt, different venues, over in Masterton as well. Yes, so there was a lot of driving around, and there were a lot of old people involved at these events. And tug of war was really popular. There was Miss New Zealand competition. And so I got involved in these various events, and it was just really the most amazing experience. And I was invited here, there and everywhere. And yeah, it was really great. A lot of fond memories. The Deaf Club I'm standing in at the moment is in the Loaves and Fishes Hall in Hill Street, Thorndon. This was opened back in 1972, And a few of the members out there have agreed to come and join me and share their memories and stories of that time. So let's have a look at what they have to say. There were bands that would play. There was punch, not alcoholic punch. That was over there. Yeah, and dancing over here in this area. Yeah, the bands were good. There were one or two I remember just over here. Yeah. Frank Kitt, the mayor, he came. How do you spell? Oh, yes, Frank Kitt. Yes. Yeah, he came along. He was invited for one of the Christmas parties. He's a patron of the Wellington Deaf Club. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I went along to Deaf Club through many years. That was really through my father, Max Howell, and both my mother and father were deaf. And I've also got a deaf brother too. So we would go along to the Deaf Club, and there were mostly older people there, older deaf people, not really many young ones much. Anyway, when we became teenagers, we started getting more and more involved in badminton at Wellington Deaf Society. And then not long after that, it was probably around 1971, the Australian Deaf basketball team came to New Zealand. Now, my father was involved in organising that, plus Tony Walton and others. And we heard that they were coming and we were like, where are they going to sleep? Anyway, my family drove up to Auckland and we met there, the Australian team, and who had flown in. And they said there was going to be a billet organised. And I sent a message to Tony and I said, we've got to billet these people out. How many are there? Anyway, my family ended up picking 3 men to come and stay. And I think the Waltons had, how many would they have had? Quite a lot. Yeah, quite a lot at their house, all over the floor, sleeping. And I actually was very lucky. I got to choose which men I wanted to stay in my house. And Kaz was one of them that I picked. And there were 2 others. Who were they again? Barry? Yes, there were 2 Barrys. And Vern, yes. And there was another Barry. One was short and one was tall. With the leg. That's right. So there were 2 Barrys, a big one. Anyway, 3 of them stayed at my house, that's right. And remember we invited Liz Jones over and Jan Howard, they came over. I can't remember who else, but there were a whole lot of deaf people who came over and we had a party and then that was finished and then the team went on to Christchurch. Anyway, yeah, and that was that. And then 3 months later, Kaz came back to New Zealand and he got a job. You explain about what happened with the job. Yeah, I got a job as a car trimmer. Yeah, and my father was the president of Wellington Deaf Society at that stage, and so we were really encouraged to go along to the Deaf Club, weren't we? Yes, we were, and that was my first time going there in 1972, along with you. That's right. In 1980, the Ministry of Health made an agreement with the Wellington Deaf Society to rent a building here at 280 Willis Street. That building has since been demolished. One condition, which was agreed to, is that the rent would last up until the building of a new motorway. So that meant that at that stage the Deaf Club had to move out. So it was here for 10 years, from 1980 up until 1990. And some of our members remember that time. 10 cents a year for the hall. Every year, that's what we paid, 10 cents. Yeah, so starting there, I was at Tiaro School. That's where I was involved. And Tiaro School was not too far away from Willis Street. So just around the corner was Tiaro School. And then up the hill was the Deaf Club. And I didn't really know what WDS was. I had no idea. And I was drawn into it from Maureen Thompson, I believe. I'm not entirely sure if it was her. It might have actually been Pam. Anyway, I can't really remember. I was quite young. How old was I? I was probably 15 years old, so I didn't really know. But my mum ended up receiving a letter from WDS. They posted it to her, and there were pages and pages that she was reading through, and I didn't really know what that was about. Anyway, I left school and went to Wellington High School. And there were some deaf people who were trying to encourage me to come along to WDS. Willis Street Hall. Upstairs was the table tennis every time, and I would organise that. There was the table tennis singles, the doubles, the mixed, and we would play for the cup, the championship competition. And I would write these scores in the book that I had. And the hall was quite spacious. It wasn't too bad, was it, to play the table tennis? And there were wooden floors. There was just the one table. Yeah, one, because it was quite small on those wooden floors. In 1990, Wellington Deaf Society was based in Willis Street. And at that time, the rental price of the building went up to $1,000 a month. And that was not affordable anymore. And so WDS had to move. And they moved to here, the Hutt Raceway, based in Lower Hutt. The person who put up the money for this was Sir Roy Mackenzie. So he covered the cost of the office space and the area where all of the deaf members would come together and mingle. So during that time, 1990 through till 1996, there was a really big focus on fundraising and a lot of events to raise money for the new Deaf Club building in Marion Street. So now there are some members who remember that time, the fundraising events that took place, and so now we're going to see what they have to say. Previously, here at the horse racing grounds, you had the dogs in the middle and the horses running around the outside with their jockeys round and round. And we used to lease a space here for Deaf Club social gatherings. Also we'd had fancy dress events as well, a variety of things we'd do, right? Yeah, there were a lot of young people that would come along to those fundraising events, raising money for deaf sports. Yeah, there were meetings here. There was that old shed for combined sports and get-togethers there. It was a fantastic meeting place. Yeah, now that's all gone. I remember Wellington Deaf Society. I was 10 years old, 11, and that's when I joined. So I got involved really through parties back then. These happened, I think, well, I'm not 100% sure, but I think they were at a horse racing ground over in Lower Hutt. There was like a horse racing area there, and within that there was like a small club that we would use. And so I still remember going there for fancy dress parties, and we had to dress up in various sports paraphernalia, and so I dressed up in my Manchester United kit. I had my red top with the logo on it and the Manchester United shorts and my shoes and my football socks as well, and I brought my football along with me as well. And so we'd go along there, not on my own. I went along with my sister. She's older than me, and she is actually 4 years older than me. So both of us would go along there to these events. And my mother, she had a really good heart and a great attitude, and she was a firm believer that my sister and I should go along to deaf community events. And there were adults there, of course, and so they were able to supervise us. And yeah, it was really great to know that we were going to be mixing there and mingling with others and signing with them. And so my mum would drop us off there, and then at the right time she'd come and pick us up again. So we'd go and we'd have our fun, and then we'd finish that and she'd pick us up and we'd go home. And it was a really great time. Mum was happy and we were happy. And I met a lot of people there, and actually people who I still stay in touch with to this day. And it was a really wonderful time. There were crazy people and there were a lot of jokes and there was a lot of talking and signing, and I would watch them and take it all in, the language and the culture. It was just really wonderful. Right now I'm standing at 32 Marion Street. It was the most recent Deaf Club here. This building has been an absolute hub of activity. Fundraising events have taken place here, all kinds of events, often cowboy themed too. We've had jelly wrestling, all kinds of events, And also regularly the Deaf Club has been open for community members and deaf students to come together to sign with one another. My second home. Previously, on the wall there was a mural which was cowboy themed, and this artwork was done by Sean Fahey. The people depicted in the artwork were the board members. So this Deaf Club has amazing memories, and we're going to see some of the stories now.
Okay.
There was a Halloween evening, and we were all there. Jared was there as well, and there was a box of death there in the room. There were decorations, and there was also a smoke machine there, and smoke went and filled the room, and we didn't realise that there was a smoke alarm on the ceiling. We were all deaf, none the wiser, and then we were surprised to see the fire engines arrive, and we were like, what's happening? And the firemen came in, and we didn't realise that there was this smoke alarm taped to the ceiling. I'll never forget it. Awesome. What was it called, that game? It was called Fear Factor. That's right. It was a great game. Fear Factor. Someone had the idea to play this game because they'd seen the TV program a lot and decided to copy what they saw and make it our own. So there was a small game, and somebody had made up some boxes, and these boxes were in a row, and you didn't know what was hidden inside the boxes. And what would happen is that somebody would roll a dice, and then you'd have a look at the number and then turn over the corresponding number on the box. And I think there were 2 or 3 different items, food or drink items, within each box. So I rolled the dice, and then I was like, okay, now I have to go and consume whatever's in here. I remember this particular box had chili in it. Luckily, all of the ingredients were blended up, so that was okay. So everyone was watching me, and I was like, okay. So I chugged back this concoction, and I actually felt okay. And I was like, yes, I've won. I've done that. And then I said, hang on. Just a few seconds later, I could feel something in my throat. And I said, it's getting hot. And I was like, oh no, it's the chili. It's really, really hot. And the temperature was beginning to rise and the heat was going into my face. And Shannon took off and went to the shops for me. She drove and then she came back really quickly after she'd purchased something. And I said, anything with milk in it. And I chugged it back. And I think it might have been chocolate milk or strawberry perhaps. Anyway, I drank the whole thing and I could still feel a little bit of burning, but then it all dissipated. And I was like, wow. People there said to me, your face was redder than we'd ever seen it. And I was like, really? I was just so hot. I was burning. Then there was a second game, and I think there was a chair placed inside a pool. There were a lot of chains around the legs, and you had to find a key to unlock them and get into the next round. And luckily I got through to the final, which was a real relief. I was really lucky. So there I was, ready, and under the cover, I think it was chicken liver perhaps, or chicken lungs or something that we had to eat. And the other person against me was Daryl. We both made it into a final, which is great. I came second, however, because I was so slow at eating this. Daryl was going through really quickly and moving on to the next challenge, and it was just so rubbery for me though, and I just couldn't get through it. There was no water to drink with it or anything. You just had to have it straight. And I saw Daryl just getting through it all, and I said, look, just stop. Congratulations. Anyway, he was the winner. I'll never forget that. It was a really great memory. I remember a lot about the Marion Street building, not so much about the previous venues like Willis Street or the horse racing ground in Lower Hutt. I don't really have very clear memories. No, I didn't go to those venues either. Most of the time when I was involved, the Deaf Club was always at Marion Street. Yeah, always, and also more recently when we were in different venues. Yeah, so on the social side, in terms of the Deaf Club at Marion Street, I remember a lot. There were so many fun events that would take place. There was the Friday nights, and I'd go along to them sometimes, but I was more often involved in the special events like the Christmas party, fundraising events, and I remember being involved in organising the youth camp. That was a fundraising event, and cowboy thing was always really popular. I remember emceeing one time, one of those evenings with Craig, which was really funny, and yeah, I still remember that. There were other fun evenings where we would get together. Also, before the building was actually sold, I still remember the New Zealand Sign Language playgroup going along there to Deaf Club, and that was perhaps the last time we were all together like that with all the children there. My children were involved. It was really great. It was a lovely time and a great memory there, having the playgroup there, and it was good to have the parents there to see what Deaf Club was like as well, and I really wish that we'd been able to carry that on until now. Unfortunately, that hasn't been possible. Yeah, you're right. I think Marion Street was a really nice setting. It was used for a lot of purposes, and yeah, I would go along. I would also go along to those events, which were really great as well. The Christmas party was always a good time, and yeah, that party was great. And people that often wouldn't go along regularly would still go along to those big events like that, which was really lovely. I also remember that the New Zealand Sign Language Teachers Conference was taking place up at Victoria University at the Design Centre, and I can't remember exactly what year it was, but they had their conference, and then after that so many people came along to the Deaf Club and the people spilled out onto the road. I still remember that being a really good time, and perhaps one of the last times that there were that many people in the venue. That was a big memory that I've got. I think it happened around December time perhaps, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, there was also Deaf U3 conference, and actually that was but at the opening of the Deaf Club, it was the same time as that conference, and people came along. That's right, it was standing room only at that time. There were so many people, it was almost difficult to sign, and the temperature in the room, it was really high. We were hot and sweaty. Yeah, we needed to open the doors. I definitely remember a bit of an air problem there. It was still fun, but yeah. I actually remember the really loud music. Oh yes, I know we're deaf, but at times we would really turn up the bass, and there was that music player and we just pumped it up, and it was just so loud. I'm surprised we didn't get any noise complaints, well, not that I was aware of. That's right. I remember Mike came with me to an event and he said to me, wow, the music is so loud. And his ears were really sore, and he said to me, can we just turn it down? And I said, no, deaf people really need to feel that vibration. But you're right, there weren't any noise complaints. Wow. Yeah, well, maybe there were before my time. That's true. But there were earplugs for the hearing people, weren't there? Yes, I worked on the bar. You were licensed. Yes, I was a manager, a bar manager. There was myself, Daryl, Shannon, and Marcel as well, the four of us. So from the first time the Deaf Club opened, we were the bar managers, the four of us. Yeah, that's right. Before I became president, I was on the bar. So at that time, there was Daryl, and he was looking for more people to work in the bar. And so I thought, okay, I'll put my hand up to be involved in working with Daryl, Jamie and Marcel. So the four of us all worked together, and yeah, we became licensed to be able to work at the Deaf Club in the bar there. So the bar at that time had a special licence, which meant that we were only allowed to operate on specific dates, and we decided then that we wanted to become fully licensed, and so they required us to go and get a certificate, so we had to go through the proper qualifications and those steps. So then we all decided to get together and we studied and became qualified to be bar attendants, and that meant that we could work in the bar serving drinks at all times really, and that was what the licence was. I was 20 years old and I started working at the bar. I wanted to put my hand up to work there. This was in Auckland. So I started working at the bar and just figuring out how it all worked, the money side of things, and just really learning about selling alcohol, I suppose, to people over the age of 18, things like that. So at the end of the night, I would then clean up. And yeah, so I started as just bar staff and learnt the ropes. And I'd regularly go along and help out on the bar and meet lots of different people through my work on the bar, old people and young people. And yeah, it was just awesome just being able to talk to people and feel valuable as well, and for people to see me as a friendly face, I suppose. So then it was delegated to me to go and become a bar manager. So I was quite motivated to do that, and I went and learnt more in depth about selling alcohol and learnt about what the law said and things like that. And so then I was able to continue selling with a licence, and I did that for 2 years and then again had to renew my licence after that and keep going. After that time I moved down to Dunedin and worked on the Deaf Club there, and actually I was only there for 16, 18 months, and from there I moved up to Wellington. So here I was back at Wellington Deaf Society, and I looked around and it was the same place and a real sense of familiarity. I remember those times when at the Deaf Club we would have fun activities and events where a lot of people would come along. There were some really busy times. I remember sometimes in the bar area, it would just happen that you'd just have an onslaught of people arrive and there wouldn't be enough drinks to sell them. So we'd take off around the corner to more Wilson's or to Toops, which wasn't far, and we'd get the supplies and come back. And also in the bar area, it was really small, would only hold a maximum of 3 people at a time. So really congested space. Yeah, there were some really fun times. I know there were a lot of events, and sometimes I would just stand up at the bar watching because it was a little bit raised, and I would just see what people were doing, have a bit of a nosy. It was fun for me just to watch. And I would see some people from different backgrounds, really. Some people who didn't know sign language and they'd come along just to learn how to order a drink. Some people from overseas would visit, and it was good to meet them and to welcome them. Some people had never actually seen a deaf person working in a bar before at the Deaf Club. So yeah, it was really great to engage with them. There were so many events, fundraising activities, more than I can think of. Yeah, so many, just a lot of fun. Now we're going to meet 2 people who have both been heavily involved on the Wellington Deaf Society board for many, many years, and both of them are also lifetime members. These 2 people are Robert and Maureen. We're going to hear from them about their memories and about how times have changed, about how when they were first on the committee, how the treasurer's role, secretary role and president's role were. So we're going to hear about their memories, about technology and how things were done in the olden days, and compare that to now. Let's take a look. I was secretary for 7 years, and I spent 2 years as president and 1 year on the committee. So altogether, I served for 10 years. At the time I was a secretary, I really, really enjoyed the job. It kept me busy, gave me something to do. I would really enjoy the activities, writing the newsletter and the letters and keeping the minutes also, things like that. So I found that I really, really did enjoy the job, and the time came then for me to make the decision to stop and to focus on teaching New Zealand Sign Language. Every Sunday I was involved in lawn bowls. That was with your father, Max Howell, and he said, come along. I said, me? He said, yeah, why not? So I was quite young, but yeah, and also with your brother, Gary. He was there too. So he was a little younger than me, but here we were, involved in lawn bowls. And I remember Tony Rees as well was there, and I felt comfortable being involved. And every month we'd shift to different locations, Paraparam, Lower Hutt, Wellington. And yeah, sometimes we won, sometimes we lost. There was the singles, the pairs and the fours. And it was a lovely times. We had picnics and lunches. It was really fantastic. I was really involved, and that was my first experience of lawn bowls. And then after a few years, I was asked to then be on the committee. And I was like, no. And they said, yeah, come along. It was actually Ray McNatty, Florrie's first husband. So he was the treasurer and I was to be the assistant treasurer. So I was really surprised. I think it might have been £7 in the bank at that time. £7 in the bank, and that was all. Here I was thinking there would be millions of dollars in the bank, but no, not yet. That was all, just the 7. So I'm trying to remember. It was 1968 or 69, roughly. Then I moved back to Wellington to live. And it wasn't long before I joined the Wellington Deaf Society committee and remained on that for 15 years straight. So I think I would visit during the daytime. And that was because at that time, I still remember Pat. She was really on to me about Wellington Deaf Society needing somebody like me to do the accounting. That was a real need, and I still remember that. And after a while, it was about the end of the year, I finished because I moved to Wellington, and that was to start a job there in 1982. And I still remember the cost was $280 a week rent at that time. And we would get together on a Friday night because that suited most people. And I think it might have actually been the second Friday of the month. The reason being that really suited the accounting side of things because we'd received the membership fees on the 10th of the month. And they all needed all to be paid by the 20th. Yeah. So do you remember actually working with Maureen as secretary at the same time? Did you work together and help each other? Yes, we did. I do remember that. Yes, I would give her advice and vice versa. I do still remember that. So we both worked together on the membership side of things. We had to work really quickly because, Maureen would receive the money on the Friday night and then I would then on the Saturday morning have to organise the receipts and things. And then Saturday afternoon, I would go to Maureen and drop it all off with her. And then Maureen would need to put the membership card and the different documents into the envelope and post them out, and that would happen before 12 o'clock on a Sunday. I started being involved on the committee when I finished college, so around about 2006. And at that time I was quite young and I had ideas regarding fundraising events. A lot of people had been coming along to Deaf Club, a lot really, and I thought we need to set up some events, some themed events to try and entice people to come along. So that's when my involvement started, and I started setting up events and people would come along, like men dressed in women's clothing and vice versa. So that was a really fun night, that one. Some other fundraising events for like the 3rd National Deaf Youth Camp, we fundraised for that. There were a lot of links to events out there and we just helped by fundraising. National events, Wellington events. Yeah, there was a real strong involvement in event management, which I had. I set up anniversaries and Christmas parties and promotions. I designed the posters just to get people on board, so I was really committed to that. I was involved on the committee for I don't know how long actually, and then I stepped down from the committee. But through that time, when I was on the committee, I organised events, quite a lot of events. And I think I just decided that I had had enough and the time came for me to step down. And I think it was after a while, it happened that there was no president at Wellington Deaf Society. Others might remember that time of having no president. And I think it was at that time that Tony Kuklinski had also stepped down and nobody wanted to become the president. And Tony sent me a message and asked me if I wanted to become the president. So I weighed it all up and I thought, wow, I need a bit more information. So I went along to the Christmas party, and I still remember that time. I had a really big afro. I had grey eye contacts in, and they said, Jared, do you want to become the president? And I said, okay then. I think I was actually co-opted as president, if that's the right word to use. But through that time as president, I actually really, really enjoyed it, more so than when I was just on the committee. And the reason for that was that as president, I had more responsibility and I was really motivated in terms of events. I got a bit of a name for myself as the events organising president, and I didn't really worry so much about the money side of things and this and that. I was just really focused on the fundraising. So we had a few events, we fundraised, like we had the Fear Factor, the Halloween evening, we had a few different things like that, some of them a little bit ominous, I remember that. And yeah, some of those things, like for example with Fear Factor, we had an event there which involved a bit of chili eating and eating of livers, and I got my inspiration from the TV program. Yeah, and for that Halloween night we had a smoke machine there as well, and actually that was the night that the fire engines all arrived. And I think we spent about $200 on that particular one. I remember Robert Cameron, he said, no, I'll just volunteer my time, and he donated the money for that. He really, really enjoyed his first time at that particular event with all the scary things that were happening. That's right, we had jelly wrestling as well. That was something. I think most of those events that we organised did have water bombs as well involved. There was a lot of throwing of water bombs, and so that was good. Yeah, that was through my time as president. So I think I was within that role for around about 3 years and then made the decision to step down. And through that time, yeah, so I was on the committee and I stepped down, and then I became the president and I stepped down from that. There were two people actually throughout that time on committee and president, Robert and Maureen, who remained on board throughout the duration. And I'm sure that Robert Cameron, as treasurer, I just really absolutely was like, wow, him being there, I just totally take my hat off to him. So Tony came over 50 years ago, is that right? Yes, and then you met her with Adrian and who else? Her mother, Tony's mother, the three of them were flatting there over in Kent Terrace. Yes, so that's where they lived. Right, so you met her and, yeah, with the three of them, that's right. And you and Tony, you would go along to Deaf Club together, or? So as a group, they would go, and then would you meet her there at Deaf Club? Where was Deaf Club again? Marion Street. Yes, Marion Street. And then, so, yeah, I think Tony loved being with deaf people, is that right? Yeah, she was always out and about and going places with her husband Noel. He would be there and then you would join in with them and you'd all be out together, and you were involved in the bowls and indoor and outdoor bowls. You'd go along to Deaf Club and lots of travelling around together. And then Noel passed away. And you and Tony were very close, weren't you? It would just be the two of you. That's right, 45 years. 45 years you were friends. Wow. And Tony didn't drive, did she? Never. So you would be the one who would go and pick her up and do all the driving? Yes, and she would pay me petrol money and, yeah, lunch money too. Wow, so you'd go along and pick her up and you'd travel round together. And then later on when my father passed away, that's right, Yeah, so it was you and Tony and Mum, the three of you, wasn't it? The three of you would go to Deaf Club together and visit one another and be out and about. I remember those times. And then my mum died, and it was you and Tony, the two of you. And I remember it was lovely. She was always so lively and happy, and yeah, it was lovely. Yeah, she was always stirring, yes, and teasing. She would make me laugh till I cried. Yeah, it was lovely. Yeah, you really miss her. Tony would come to my place to sleep for 2 or 3 days, and then I'd drop her home again, and then I'd be on my own for a time. And then the next day, I'd receive a fax to go back over to sleep at her house, and we'd go to the Deaf Club and we'd have a drink, and yeah, a bit of drink actually. Yeah, and she'd be a bit drunk sometimes. I'd have a little. Yeah. But Tony was really mad on the bowling, wasn't she, for a long time? I think she perhaps only stopped a year or two before she passed away. No, actually, I'm wrong. Well, it was only that 1 year. I remember we had the Easter, and then she passed away November the same year. Yeah, wow, so she didn't want to give up. So we've seen the history and the stories of Wellington Deaf Society over the years. Members who have been involved have shared their memories and their stories, and I hope that you've really enjoyed watching today and are feeling inspired.